Now I'd like to go across the globe to India to learn firsthand from a dynamic woman who's committed to the betterment of her community. It's my true pleasure to introduce you to a remarkable woman, Amita Birla. Amita is the co-chairperson of the C.K. Birla Group, which is a $2 billion conglomerate focused on IT and automotive, home and building, and healthcare and education. Their businesses are present across 5 continents with more than 25,000 employees, 41 manufacturing facilities, 4 hospitals, 24 service delivery locations, an engineering institute, and Gemco, a Caterpillar dealership in India. Amita is also the chairperson of Birlasoft, an enterprise digital IT services business with leading enterprise solutions and extensive digital capability. You'll hear from Amita today about her passion for inclusion and her passion to help lift other women up. She's unlocking the talents of her employees while also strengthening the rich history of India. In addition to her business success, along with her husband CK, she's dedicated her life to social development, the advancement of science and technology, and the appreciation of arts and culture. What's even more impressive is that their 2 daughters, both here today, Avi and Avanti, who have followed in their parents' footsteps, and we're really happy to have them here with us. So please help me to welcome Amita Birla to the stage. You're welcome.
What an exciting conference. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling very energized and motivated. It's also very encouraging to see so many men here, and our shared belief is that their role is crucial as influencers and enablers. Today, I jointly run the C.K. Birla Group with my husband, and more particularly, I manage Birlasoft. Birlasoft started life, it's an IT services company. It started life with a small equity base of about $400,000. And I'd like to say it was a hobby. It was a rather expensive one. But today, after a complex merger deal, it has, and with expertise in SAP and digital, it's a $500 million and enterprise digital company. I've enjoyed the journey. And more than that, I've enjoyed the people. I have to say, it's been one of the great passions of my life. And the joke at home is that it's my first child. An important part of Birlasoft's mandate has been the focus on inclusion. And we've ensured that the board comprises 38% women and diverse experiences. What's brought me here to Peoria is the 35-year-old partnership that we've had with Caterpillar through one of our group companies, Gemco. And during this time, we've learned so much about your processes, your systems, your in-house talent development, and this is something we've been able to replicate over many of our companies. Chandra, the CEO of Gemco, is also here with me today, along with 3 women leaders from some of our other businesses. Megha from our Office of Growth and Strategy, they're sitting here, Indrani from the Charitable Hospitals, and Priyanka from Birlasoft. I'm also happy to introduce my 2 daughters, who Denise very thoughtfully invited, Avni and Avanti. Avni works in the appliances division of our electricals business, and Avanti set up a hospital for women in New Delhi almost 2 years ago. I know that all these women are looking forward to meeting and taking forward conversations with you towards mutual benefit and learning. Generations of working together in a family business is something of a speciality with us. And my daughters are the 5th generation to do so. As pioneers of industry in India, and with a legacy of 160 years, We represent a number of industries across manufacturing, services, software, and healthcare. But I think the part of the business that gives my husband, CK, and I the greatest pleasure and the greatest pride is the impact that our group makes on the community through the schools that we run, the hospitals, the university, the museums. Giving back what we've had the honor to have received is what really fuels our ambition. Let me come back to our conversation of today. It was over a lovely dinner with Denise in New Delhi that I first heard about the bold work that Caterpillar's undertaken in this field of inclusion. I was so inspired by Denise herself, and also what she told me about this conference, that I asked her if I might learn a bit more about it, so that we could do something similar across our own businesses. Thank you, Denise, for extending this invitation to include so many of us. I see this as a learning platform, and I feel privileged to have been invited to speak and share a little bit about how I came to be the woman I am, my beginnings, and how this shaped my career. When I thought about what I was going to speak today, I felt I really needed to look within myself and reflect upon what shaped my identity as a woman. I was born to parents who had very humble beginnings. We moved to London from India when I was just a baby. My father was a simple filing clerk who created a metals business to then become the longest-serving chairman of the London Metal Exchange. My mother founded a well-known immigrant support center in London while teaching herself English. A traditional but very entrepreneurial couple who built up an enterprise that commands a lot of respect for both the business that they created and the social impact that they made. My early learnings were therefore about being frugal, and that with grit and persistence, dreams really can become a reality. I also learned that whatever the situation, to remember that a reputation was a prized possession and to never do anything to damage that. The influences of Western and Eastern cultures led to contradiction and conflict in my mind. The diversity of London life, the English traditions, the openness of the culture, and the values were all at loggerheads with the Indian sensibility. And it felt like tradition at home and modernity at school. This affected my ambitions for my life. And little did I know that this clash of cultures would eventually become a strength. I didn't know then that my idyllic schoolgirl life was about to be cut short at 17, and I was in shock when I learned that I was to have an arranged marriage in India. I was bewildered. And with my dreams of going to the University of Cambridge utterly demolished, I was suddenly torn away to make a future in a country I hardly knew and a language I barely spoke. And yet I was surprised at the submissive manner in which I succumbed to this idea. I wasn't a rebellious teenager by any means, but it did leave me very fearful about my future. And I believe this is the time I first began to have empathy for women and their predicaments. I married into one of India's biggest business families, even more traditional and conservative than my own. A formal family, a family so well recognized that my every move was scrutinized. There was a society at large that was interested in this English phenomenon that had arrived in their midst. Her accent, her outlook, her lack of Indianness both fascinated and annoyed them. At home, every conversation around the dinner table was about business. And at first, as a 19-year-old, I had no idea what an Indian business enterprise looked like. But it became abundantly clear what was expected of me when CK's grandfather asked me a week after I was married how I intended to support myself. I laughed, honestly. I laughed inwardly, thinking, what a silly question to ask me. Every woman around me is quintessentially traditional with a head covered with a sari. And he expected me to work, having denied me the opportunity of going to university. But that's precisely what he expected. Your degree will be in my business. And that's how I began working. There was an equally firm pull from the women in the family who expected me to replicate their age-old template with the anticipation of religious festivities and fasts and visitations to relatives, wearing the right clothes, managing a home well. There were also expectations of me having children, how they should be brought up. What I was going to wear was a big thing, the duty I needed to show to the family. This led to more conflict and contradiction in my heart and head. My behavior and priorities became everybody else's business. And this had a big impact on my self-esteem and confidence in the early years. I suppose a deep-rooted voice within, my father perhaps, helped me decide that I would trust in what CK's grandfather said and throw myself into work. It was his dream to have women lead the business. He was a man very much ahead of his times, and he was determined to help me achieve something big. And in my success, I think, was his dream come true. He admired my father's entrepreneurial skills and was willing to place a big bet on me. It was a heavy burden to carry, but for his part, he never let me down. His teachings included constantly quizzing me on everything, on business, on politics, the new opera, the price of gold, the general reserves of the Bank of England, fashion, the budget deficit, everything. I had to be on my toes with the information and with enough understanding of the subject to be able to have an intelligent conversation about it. He also invited me into drawing rooms with CEOs, politicians, and scholars. I enjoyed it immensely, and it provided me with a platform for learning that I had so longed to complete by going to university. I had a wonderful relationship with him, and by now, a strong resolve. Sharing the business portfolio with his wife, when all along it was destined to be his alone, must have been the hardest thing for my husband CK to navigate. Two individuals with two styles, and once again, I was straddling two cultures and two worldviews, my own very Western outlook and CK's more Eastern approach. But we learned to respect each other's strengths and are still learning on the job. And he is my biggest supporter and also my hardest critic. Now you know why I think men are so crucial and why I'm really delighted to see so many in the audience. All along, I developed a passion for learning from anyone who had something to teach me. And I also balanced the expectations of being a daughter, a wife, a mother, joint chairman, and mentor to my women colleagues. I, like so many women today, work predominantly with men. Besides being great business leaders, some are overconfident, narcissistic, condescending, and conservative. I've not only learned to work with these diverse sets of leaders, but make sure all of them are aware of their role in our changing world today. And whether that's enabling long-term visioning, building up the right culture and support for women, or adoption of technology. Being a mother to two grown-up daughters has not been the roller coaster ride it could have been. My priority, however, was not to create an entitled refuge where life would have been easy for them. After all, mine wasn't. So I went out of my way to normalize it, and I enjoy helping them navigate this journey. The difficult balance between the expectations that life will have from them both personally and professionally is one I know only too well. But I get the feeling that this causes me more anxiety and worry than it does my husband. From a very Western experience, I then learned about Indian society, which traditionally defines a woman through her relationships only, rather than her individuality. A woman is referred to as a person only when she is a mother, a daughter, a sister, or a wife. And we're reminded of this every time we fill out a bank statement or a government form in India, because it asks us, are you the daughter of or the wife of? And it's a reminder that we belong to someone. And this goes back to the difference in upbringing and the strong bias for a boy child. So looking ahead, there's generally poor career planning for women, exclusion from information networks, low recognition, low visibility, because women are generally less assertive and they're sensitized as good Indian girls to fit in. It's not surprising then that women have plummeting levels of self-esteem. But I feel very strongly that incompetence must not be confused with underconfident. India is a country of contradictions, though, and in an organizational context, we are witnessing considerable change in line with cultures elsewhere. I know what works for us is when an executive sponsor backs a woman, and this includes flexibility in work policies, expanded opportunities on the shop floor and in the field, and of course, mentoring. Women aren't as assertive as men, and difficult leadership experiences sometimes hold women back. And guilt is that familiar friend that accompanies us. Going forward, I know we have to change the game, to not just have conversations about diversity, but to commit to a collaboration that includes understanding a woman's predicament, working with the right tools so that she's able to develop her leadership potential, and to look out for blind spots and also blind people. I want the diversity charter that I see growing in stature at our corporate and business level to be matched by a change at grassroots level. And we're fortunate to be able to do this in our group by influencing the education agenda through the primary and secondary schools that we run. And this includes our university, the Birla Institute of Technology. Changing mindsets during the formative years is key. And as women, we need platforms such as this one. I feel truly privileged to have been part of the conversations and to listen and be inspired by so many powerful people who think and do on behalf of women everywhere. During the course of my career, I've made many mistakes and had so many failures. It's part of who I am now. Not calibrating priorities correctly, judgment calls taken on a gut, decisions without the right information, afraid to ask for help, often afraid to look silly by asking the wrong questions. But I think the great thing about mistakes and failure is that they make you sit up and they give you a chance to reflect, and then you remember what someone perhaps older and wiser than you once told you, and in my case, it's my father, to take your courage in your own hands. Listen, sleep on it, and with a cool head, take a decision fearlessly, and above all, to believe in yourself. Thank you.
Very good, Amita. That was very inspiring, and I'm sure there are a lot of questions in the audience, and we're almost out of time, so I'm going to take advantage of asking you a few myself. You and your husband, CK, co-lead a very large organization, yet every night you come home, and most nights have dinner together. How do you co-lead such a complex conglomerate of businesses effectively, and what is it like to sit at your dinner table and listen to the conversations that you have?
Well, we have different personalities, but I think we're blessed that our styles are very complementary. It's not always easy because I ask a lot of questions, and I think a lack of formal education, a lack of going to university and doing an MBA means I need to learn more, and I need to ask so many questions that I think I really do push him to the absolute extreme. But I think as a result of that, the business benefits and the business gets much more out of us. I know our business leaders, they experience our diverse ideas, and they assimilate and they build and grow upon initiatives that enrich the business, and that are sometimes quite disruptive because, they're dealing with two individuals who are quite different, and they want to incorporate whatever we both said, so they really have to think on their feet.
That's great. You told me a story yesterday about some awards that were given to various members of the leadership team of a few of your businesses, and historically, the person that was to receive the award was the male leader in the family. And yet, as you watched who was getting a lot of that work done, it was
women.
The women behind the scenes, and you changed how those awards were given. Could you talk about that a little?
We began, it's one of our businesses, the electricals business, and we have dealers who are predominantly men. But I noticed during the course of this ceremony that so many women in the videos that were prepared, so many women were actually the more active, but they had no recognition. And again, I think it goes back to culturally, how behind the men the women are. So I just suggested that we recognize them and we get them to speak up, and we follow their journey, and we try and create development programs that would actually help them. So we're going to have our next award ceremony later on this year. So I'm looking forward to seeing the progress on that.
That's great. So can we take one question from the audience? Yeah, there's one over here and one over here.
I'm so sorry. Say your name and where you're from.
Sure. My name's Erin. I'm with Finning International. I'm also a mother of 2 very small daughters, and I'm inspired by the fact that you have your daughters here in the audience, tentatively filming your very inspirational speech, and so I appreciate your time. I'm curious what your advice is to your daughters that you give them and the lessons that you carry forward through them.
I grew up with very humble backgrounds, so I think it's very important to earn your place. And we live perhaps more privileged than a lot of people. So my focus has always been to remind them about being simple, and about being down to earth, and about humility. And I think, I hope I can say that they're going to carry these forward, but the signs are good so far.
Thank you, Amita.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, Denise. Thank you.